Hope you're doing well. It is Wednesday, and I thought I would do a tactical LinkedIn Live on something that's important. As this morning, about 20 minutes ago, my team booked me a sales qualified lead. And it made me think about today's topic that, well, so many of our customers and in Get Levrg, they're primarily SMB, lower mid market customers. Sales qualified leads, number one problem going on right now, number one challenge in the business is booking meetings. So, my agency is now creating one sales qualified lead per day on average over the course of 1 year. Yes, it helps in when the founder has agency number 3 and has spent his whole life in business development. I recognize that's not in every SaaS software company and in every agency, that's not the case. But my job is to deploy wisdom to you so that you can see what we're doing. So I put in 4 topics into this particular agenda, so I'll go into them. And as I look at it, there are some great minds in sales I want to give a shout out to because they talk about components of the 0 to 1 process and there are 4 of them that I'm going to go over that you really need to understand. The first person I'm going to give a shout out to is a guy named Brandon Bordassian, who's the CEO of Seamless.ai. Why? Because since the beginning of time, since the beginning of starting his business, he talked about the list. I can't stress how important this is. My agency, Get Levrg, has a product, Sales Support as a Service, in which our virtual assistants build TAM maps, which stands for Total Addressable Market, maps of accounts and contacts. Most of the time, when we go inside our customer CRM, it is a hot mess. It is spaghetti thrown against the wall. There are accounts, there are contacts, but they're not organized. There's missing information. They're not what's called enriched. There's no phone number, no email address, no LinkedIn profile. So the first thing that you need to do is choose the TAM you're going after. Typically, there's 3 ways of doing this. You go after a geography, you go after a vertical, or you go after a set of named accounts. But the very first thing you have to do is to put somebody, yes, you can use tools, but tools will get you only a component of it. You need to then use a human being to QA that list to tighten it up. Because in whatever technology you're going to put that information in, it needs to be able to process perfectly. It has to have very clean LinkedIn addresses, emails, phone numbers, contact information, because this will all come together. So the number one thing you need to do is you need to build a robust list. And that list needs to be easily segmentable. As an example, if you go from SMB, let's say 0 to 50 employees, and you jump to lower mid-market, 50 to 200, and then you want to go towards the mid-market, 200 to 500 employees, and then you have to be able to segment by size. You have to be able to segment by address. You have to be able to segment by job title and function. This is a list for CEOs. This is a list for chief revenue officers and so forth. So that's the first one. First tip, before we start any campaign, we develop a very robust list. Now, that list, we use a variety of tools. I'll just tell you some of the tools we love. We love clay.com to be able to develop lists, especially when you have imperfect data. Say you had a piece of data, you had some names and some companies, but you didn't have email addresses, or you had some names and you had some email addresses, but you didn't have job titles and accounts. Clay is a pivot table that solves for pi. We use Voila Norbert to be able to identify the most perfect email addresses. It soft pings the servers to test that that email is real. By far the best email validation tool. We use Expandy, not only to prospect on LinkedIn, but you can dump data into it and extract it so you're able to pull mass amounts of data from LinkedIn. These are things that we do for our customers. So that's number one. Number one is the list. Number 2 on this list, I'm going to call it the signal, the compelling event. Here's the thing is, there's a concept by Chet Holmes that dictates, the book's called The Ultimate Sales Machine, came out 20 some years ago. And the study dictates that no more than 3 to 10% of any market is willing to buy at any given time. 3% is actively buying. The other 7% is thinking about it, is getting there. That means 90% is not going to respond. 90% is not ready. Maybe they save your email. Maybe they save your LinkedIn message. But how do you attract the 3%? You have to reach them ideally at a moment of change. What are some of those compelling events? New executive stakeholder goes in, out, and up. So, of course, my offshore agency can track every job change in the world. What about companies that use certain software where you integrate very well? You can use tools to extract lists that to be able to figure out who uses what tools. What about maturity events? Companies that have just raised capital, going public, M&A events, just attracted private equity investment. All of these require stages of due diligence that require companies to jump in maturity levels. And usually when those events happen, they have to make massive investments in parts of their business that they're weak. They have to usually become more profitable. They have to, as an example, strengthen their ELT, their leadership team. They have to get more robust systems because, the private equity firm doesn't want things run on spreadsheets anymore. So the compelling events. So we take the list and we then prioritize that list. We segment that list based on some of those events. Again, use an offshore team to be able to extract what is the 3 to 10% we should target at least first. The next on the list that you go after is the story. And there's two that's really interesting. So a gentleman named Steve Richard owned Vorsight, owned a variety of other companies. Vorsight, a sales training company, owned Exec Vision, which is a sales enablement platform or sales engagement platform. He used a concept that was very permission-based, and he showed it to me years ago, and I didn't understand it. And not until Bryn Tillman of Social Sales Link showed me a very similar permission-based model that I'm now testing right now. And ironically, it's working. So shout out to both of you. Here's the concept is instead of going for the big ask, what Steve was saying, and Steve would say, listen, a lot's changed in my business since we last touched base. This works really well for first degree connections. A lot's changed in my business. So I assume a lot's changed in your business. I've got something interesting I want to show you. I'd love your feedback on something. Everybody loves to be a mentor or consultant. They want to give feedback. So he books meeting after meeting this way. People want to see the new thing. And he doesn't pitch. He just shows them the new thing and lets them discern if they want to know more. Bryn's is I find even more interesting. So what she's doing is, listen, I'm doing a quote for a newsletter or I'm doing a quote for a podcast. I'd love to get your opinion on something beyond that quote. Books somebody into the meeting, doesn't pitch them, actually takes the quote, learns about their business. They do a quote for a podcast or a newsletter, and only if they ask, by the way, what do you do? And this is the hard part. I don't know if I can get there yet. She doesn't pitch right away. She said, let me schedule a call and we'll go through that instead of naturally doing it on that live call. Yeah, that's hard for me. So permission-based, interesting. So we actually started this. Guess what? Booked a meeting on LinkedIn last night, booked an email-based prospect this morning doing this. And now I come to the last component that I'm going to talk about, which is the medium. There is no medium that is dead. We have customers that are booking meetings with cold calls. We have customers that are booking meetings via email. I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been really powerful for a lot of our customers, especially when, and I can't stress this enough, if you're going to a live event, driving people to a bar, a restaurant, a meetup, a coffee shop, to your booth, oh my God, LinkedIn is incredible. If you end up getting the user database or the attendee database and the sponsorship database to an event, you have to be doing this. It is crazy, the horsepower this provides. So long of the short is there is no medium that is perfect, but I highly recommend that you're testing them all. We have used LinkedIn extensively for years. We have a product called Digital Prospector for our customers to prospect on LinkedIn. But email is something that I've never given up on, even though I've had many false starts. Booked a meeting this morning with email. So there is no medium that is perfect. You want to test them all because you have no idea which is the medium that is going to ultimately attract your customer. So I hope you find this valuable. But in creating one sales qualified lead a day, these are 4 major steps that you need to tackle. Now, what we've done, of course, at Get Levrg is create products and virtual assistants or sales and marketing support agents to do these components so that you can go focus on the big things, the $500 an hour value creation, while we do these $5 an hour tasks. But if you're not knocking off these $5 an hour tasks, you think that you're going to maybe jump the shark and actually get the sales qualified leads that you want, but you won't, because these are 4 major components getting right to going from 0 to 1, 0 to sales qualified lead. So I hope you found this valuable.